think my favorite part about filmmaking is getting an idea and without any knowledge on how you're going to accomplishing it, just doing it. Jumping in and figuring it out as you go. I've made enough short films and videos by now to know that even when you have a plan, things don't always go to plan. Plans are great to have, but hard to keep. I should write that down. That's why it's great to know as much as you can about cinematography and setting up shots. That way when things eventually do go south, you have the knowledge to know how to handle that situation. So getting to the main point of this video, how to have good cinematography and get good cinematic shots.
I think she knows that. She drives him crazy when she's looking like that. The way she's moving makes him want it so bad. Gets the attention that we wish that we had. Yeah, it's almost cruel, cause I want her to. Oh yeah, I'm running in circles just to make her react. My heart is racing, yeah, I want her so bad. I wanna kiss her, but I know for a fact that she's way too cool. But I want her to.
Now, the first thing I advise you to do is go out, right now. Or rather, when you finish with this video, take your camera or phone with you and just shoot stuff. Pictures, not with a gun, that would be bad. This works with both photography and filmmaking, because if you can set up a good shot with good composition, you can set up a good photo with good composition, and vice versa. They work together. Now, I get not everyone has a great camera to start off with, and that's why you can use your phone. Now, I used to get really upset when I heard photographers or filmmakers say just use your phone, because they're not the same thing. But phones nowadays are good enough to where if you have a pretty good phone, you can absolutely start off with that. And then as you get better with using the phone, hopefully eventually you can save up and get a good camera. And by the time you get a new camera, you'll have used your phone for long enough to where you'll be much more further ahead than if you hadn't used your phone at first and you just bought a camera. You can teach yourself more if you're using a phone rather than if you're just watching YouTube videos and not recreating it with a phone or a camera. And when it's your only option as a filmmaker, you can make it work. You also don't have to have a certain image in mind. You can just go out for a walk and happen to bring your camera, and if you see a shot that you like, take a picture of it. That way you can get some great practice in, but you're not stressing about you have to have a good shot. Because if you find one, great, but if not, no worries. Going for walks won't just help clear your mind. It can also creatively inspire you, which is why you need to bring your camera. So long story short, that's why you should bring your camera every time you go for a walk.
Everyone's taking their shot, showing all that they got, but they'll be missing the cut.
Okay, congratulations. Now you know to go out and practice, but let's say you just did that and you don't know what you're doing. How do I set up the shot? What is the rule of thirds? What frame rate should I use? What is ISO? Should I use a tripod? How do I know if... My point is that a lot of information, if not all the information, you're not just going to know. And maybe figuring it out all by yourself doesn't sound so fun. Luckily, I'm prepared to teach you everything there is to know about getting a cinematic shot, starting with composition. Composition is everything. It's one of the deciding factors of if a shot looks good or if it doesn't. A good rule to follow is the rule of thirds. What you want to do is go into your camera settings and turn on the grid pattern. This is a 2x2 grid that will help guide your shots. You can set your subject up using this grid pattern to help guide you for a consistent shot that looks really good. There's not just one way to follow this rule, and it is more of a guideline than an actual rule. However, if you watch pretty much any movie out there, they do follow this rule one way or another pretty much all the time. You can align your subject in these 4 crosshairs for a shot that looks good. Or you can just move your camera around until you like a shot and just remember what it looks like when comparing it to the grid pattern. There's not one right or wrong way to do this, so again, if you just go outside and experiment, eventually you'll figure out what works and what doesn't, and that is a great way of growing as a filmmaker and learning good cinematic shots. Pro tip, you can also turn this setting on in your phone by going to photo settings and turning on the grid pattern. This will help align your shots even when you're using your phone. Next up, it is incredibly important to have depth in your shot. This shot right here looks boring. There's nothing visually interesting about it. The first thing you should do when you're handling a situation like this is to create distance between your subject and the background. That way the background is more blurry. Make sure you have a high aperture setting as well. Now if you don't know what that is, it's okay. However, I would suggest you go on YouTube and look up tutorials on what that is so that you can learn more about it. Because it's really important to learn more about your camera as you're becoming a better filmmaker. One other tip to get a blurry background is actually doing it in post. I don't suggest filming a shot and then planning to do it in post. However, there's a lot you can do when editing a video to make it more blurry. Like this shot for instance, if I wanted to, I could make it super blurry like that. All I had to do was mask out myself and add a Gaussian blur to the background around me, and it's super easy. Now this kind of falls apart when I move around a lot, and you can see kind of what the issue is. So there is only so much you can do when doing it in post. However, if you do want a little bit more blur, this can be a good way of doing it sometimes. Another way of adding depth to your shot is by putting stuff in the foreground, in front of your subject, close to the camera where it's blurry. I use this in all of my short films because it's such a good way of making your shot look more interesting. I use this technique several times in the intro as well, and it definitely helped to make that look more cinematic. Here is a quick before and after on what it can look like before you add depth to a shot by putting something in the foreground, and after you add depth to the shot by putting something in the foreground. As you can see, it just makes the shot more interesting and, in my opinion, better. Something else you can do is shoot through something to help frame your shot. This is harder to plan because how many random objects are there in your day-to-day life that you can shoot through? However, if you happen to see something that you can shoot through, then I would definitely try it out and see how it looks, because it's such an interesting way of shaking things up when you're filming, and it definitely works to make your shot more interesting. Another tip I have for filming cinematically is Haze. Haze defuses the light and allows you to see light rays. You can see right there, it looks kind of misty around that light and around that light, and that's because of the haze. Now you may have to reapply it as the shot goes on. However, haze can be a fantastic way of adding depth to your shot because you can see the light and watch how the light interacts with the room. One quick thing is you can't really add haze outside. However, if you're doing something inside and there are windows, for instance, or lights, then I definitely recommend adding haze. The final hack I have for making a shot more cinematic is music. Finding a song that's good for your video can be really tricky, but it is so important. I think all of us filmmakers at one point have gone on YouTube and looked up copyright-free music. However, there is a better way to do this. If you want the good stuff, you gotta pay. However, I know of a great subscription service that I've been using for the last couple months, and it has absolutely changed my filmmaking 100%. I use Epidemic Sound. With this, there's like 50,000 songs that you can use and tons of sound effects to help your videos sound even better. Sound design is so important for your videos, and so many filmmakers overlook this. I feel like any video I make has to have music or else it's not of the higher quality. If you guys want to watch more of me, then you can click here for a video about camera angles and how to use them, and here for a Netflix-style documentary about a fork. Yeah, it's as weird as it sounds. Subscribe if I taught you something new, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.